This year, more than 3,000 students from 41 states entered our StudentCam video documentary competition, and they shared how the federal government impacts their lives. Here are our StudentCam 2022 winners. Our first prize middle school winner is Arya Ronnie Sindeldecker, an 8th grader from Graham Middle School in Mountain View, California, with the documentary Stigma-Free Nation, Pathway to Parity. Our first prize High School East goes to Evelyn Shu and Ida Chen, 10th graders from Richard Montgomery High School in Rockville, Maryland, and Winston Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland, for their documentary titled Something in the Water. The first prize High School Central winners are Jason Boudreau, Jaleha Joseph, and Shantanesha Manuel, 11th and 12th graders from College Street Vocational Center in Lake Charles, Louisiana, for their documentary titled FEMA's Impact on Our Lives in Southwest Louisiana. The first prize High School West goes to Kimberly Kotsky and Zoe Glyko, 9th graders from Foothills Community Christian School in Great Falls, Montana, for their documentary titled American Rescue Plan, Economic Boost or Bust. And our $5,000 grand prize winners are 7th graders Tyler and Dermot Foley from Eastern Middle School in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Out of this year, out of 3,000 students who participated in the competition, you guys are this year's grand prize winners.
Grand prize? Grand prize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dermot and Tyler Foley won the top prize for their documentary titled What Happened to Gibson Grove.
Growing up, my brother and I would bike to our favorite park all the time, and along the way, we would pass a small church that was very mysterious. It is located in a wooded area next to I-495, the highway that goes around Washington, D.C. in the shape of a belt. The doors and windows of the church were boarded up, and there were vines growing everywhere. It looked like there had been a fire a long time ago. We were curious, and we found out that more than 140 years ago, the church, called Gibson Grove, had been the center of a bustling African-American community. There had been a school, an adult baseball team, and a community meeting hall with dances and a cemetery. One day, we saw an announcement that the Capitol Beltway was being expanded in the area of the church. The plans showed that the new highway lanes would be built right on top of portions of the cemetery, threatening to erase it. The highways around Washington, D.C. are some of the most congested in the country. People can literally be stuck on them for hours. The widening of the Capitol Beltway was a major victory for Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who argued that the project is essential for economic development of the region. America's interstate highway system took shape in 1956 with the passage of the Federal Aid Highway Act. At that time, officials often purposely routed the roads through black and brown communities, displacing families and demolishing historic neighborhoods. The National Trust for Historic Preservation calls highways memorials to racial injustice, and said architects of the roads tended to view black neighborhoods as the path of least resistance. But we are now in a moment of racial reckoning. President Biden, as part of a $1 trillion plan to improve America's infrastructure, has pledged to use $20 million to help neighborhoods of color split or splintered by past projects.
If a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and a black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or it would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices.
The story of the Gibson Grove community in Cabin John, Maryland, begins in 1880 when Robert and Sarah Gibson, who were formerly enslaved and came north to Maryland from Virginia, bought a 5-acre plot of land in an area about 4 miles northwest from Washington, D.C. Soon, 9 other black families joined them.
So during the time period when the people who were coming into this area were purchasing the land, this land was actually segregated, so African Americans weren't allowed to live here. And they found a few people who owned property who were willing to actually sell land to African Americans. This is why this becomes so important, because even though they were surrounded all around by people who didn't want them there in a hostile environment, they still found a way to make this home. And in this small little area, they had their cemetery, they built a church, they had a lot of different people who had different jobs, they were seamstresses and other things as well.
My family is originally from Georgetown, Washington, D.C. So we're still tracing how he got here. We believe that he was working on the aqueduct nearby.
But something happened to the tight-knit community in the 1950s and 60s. That's when the original construction of the Capitol Beltway took place, physically splitting the Gibson Grove AME Zion Church from the cemetery.
But see these homes right here? That's under the highway. If you follow me carefully.
Oh, there's another one.
Another one, but we can't really read it. It's worn away. We don't know what happened. But you can see that the questions.
As a child, I never knew this was here. I really didn't, because my grandmother didn't talk about it, neither one of my grandparents. It was something that really, really hurt them. Just imagine your ancestors buried on property, and all of a sudden the highway department comes by and decides, well, nobody's going to miss these people, we're just going to pave over them.
For lost communities like Gibson Grove, cemeteries are often all that's left.
Black cemeteries really contain Black history. So you're recreating the entire history sometimes of a community, knowing who's in the cemetery.
Congressman Donald McEachin from Virginia has written a bill that would direct the National Park Service to map historic African American cemeteries. Supporters hope it will be reintroduced this year.
We need to act now before these sites are lost to the ravages of time or development.
We can still see the consequences of those decisions. The segregation that began back then is still present in Montgomery County. The area around Gibson Grove in the western half is now overwhelmingly white. I go to school in the east, which is 75% minority. The story of the Moses Morningstar Cemetery has a happy ending. Descendants, neighbors, and academic researchers formed a coalition to fight the highway construction, and in September, the state announced it would avoid the cemetery when adding new lanes. But without strong federal laws to protect these sites, the threat still looms elsewhere.
Congratulations to all of our StudentCam winners. The top 21 winning entries will air on C-SPAN starting April 1st, and you can watch all of the winning StudentCam documentaries anytime, online at studentcam.org.